The production's great. You know, it's all the distortion, the chaos, the way the singer's using their voice. It sounds like total mayhem. I love that.
Нам не выжить без смеха, прям как без русского мата. Мой отец КГБшник, а моя мать с автоматом, и мои дети солдаты.
You know, it's obviously a bit of trap music, right, in terms of how the bottom end works, but the vocal sounds very confident and it sounds like it's storytelling. So it's less about the sound of the vocal and it actually sounds like the writer's telling a real story, which is interesting. One thing I love about Russian hip hop in particular is it has two things it accomplishes. Similar to American hip hop, it likes to be commercial. It knows it potentially could have a record that will play in the south of France or that will get on the radio. So it has this lane that are commercial records. But there's another lane of Russian hip hop that's very visceral, very authentic, very street, sometimes very regional, very ethnic, very of my point of view. And I think that music at its core is an art form of opposition. You know, when I think of music, I think of African-American music that came out of slaves who would sing hymnals, right, while they were working. And they would sing often in a dialect that the masters didn't understand. And they weren't allowed to talk, but they would sing to each other. And I think hip hop is this great kind of secret language. And I find in Russia all the time, I don't speak Russian, but I can feel it in the music. There's a secret language that kids understand. So I like that it's become a vehicle of voice, of community, of opposition, but it's also very popular. It's not just living underground. This is great. It's totally crazy. It reminds me of Grimes meets K-pop. Looks like Grimes meets K-pop. Vocal's great. Tons of reverb. No idea what they're saying. Doesn't matter. No, reverse vocal. Reverse vocal is always good. That was good. Yeah. It sounds like it should have been 45 minutes long. The concern I have is that working in the studio a lot with artists these days, I find good is good enough. So when I started making records, you were absolutely, you know, and I'm super unsentimental, so I'm not like one of those old people like back in the day, you know, I don't care, you know. Technology is always getting better, things are getting better. I love a progressive world, you know. I want my children to live in a much better place than I got to live in. That's all good, right? But we used to really focus on everything, you know, like right now I hear the air conditioning fan in the background. So if I was cutting a vocal off, I'd be certain to turn that fan off, right? So that we had perfect sound for the fidelity for the vocal. And we would try 30 microphones and we'd try 50 preamps, and if the vibe wasn't right, we'd do it at night. And if the vibe still wasn't right, we'd do 5 vodka shots, and everything was about a thing. And what I find a lot of artists now, because they feel like their consumers are just listening to them on, you know, not really through audio equipment, but just basically through media equipment. So they'll cut a beat in Fruity Loops real quick, and they'll just put a cheap mic vocal over it, and they drop it into SoundCloud, and they're done, and they think it's good. You know, Dr. Dre started out with NWA. He had an MPC, he had an 808, he made the best of it. But as he got better, he learned how to record real strings and real violins and real bass playing and upright bass, right? Out of that came the Chronic, which changed the sound of hip hop forever. So I think it's about trying to get people as often as possible to hear the fidelity. You know, what's ironic is, for example, the phone in your hand has an amazing converter on it. So it's actually a great instrument of sound. You just need to give people headphones so that they can hear it correctly. That person should run my company. They're fearless. I don't know who they are, but they don't give a fuck. Very passionate, really fearless. You know, like, you know, singing exactly from their soul. So they sound very upset about something. I don't think their heart is broken. Contemporary folk song. I wish they'd used a real drummer. Drummers need work. That's very good though. Commercial rock is not as viable as it used to. So people, because I think it's splintered. In the 60s, you basically, if you were a kid, you kind of could do three things. You could go to the movie theater, you could be a fan of a sports team, or you could like rock music. That was it. You didn't have, you weren't playing hours of World of Warcraft or watching e-games at Overwatch or like, no, I'm really, the otaku world of the internet. All of us have our own passions. We disappear forever into this thing that only us and 10,000 other people love, and that's it. It used to be these very simple things. One of them was rock and roll. That's splintered, but that's okay. I'm on the board of Fender Guitars, so I'm very aware of what we do at Fender, which is the largest guitar manufacturer in the world. We sell more guitars than we've ever sold before. And people are using the internet to learn how to play them. So what's interesting is that we used to sell guitar to people, and they'd play it for a couple of days, and it'd be really hard, and they'd put it back in the thing, and they'd put it under their bed, and they never touch it again. And then they go to college, and eventually their mom would sell it. Now what's happening is you get the guitar, and you go to, we have a thing called Fender Play, where you actually learn there, or you just go to YouTube, see someone play chords, and suddenly you're playing your favorite Ed Sheeran song, and it's inspiring. We see a lot of guitar players, and the most positive thing is we see a lot of female guitar players. Guitar used to be kind of a thing for some reason that was a male activity, but that's completely changed. We're seeing an explosion of young female writers, and now we're seeing it in the albums that come out. An artist like Phoebe Bridgers or Julian Baker or Snail Mail or Soccer Mommy. There's all these albums that are written by women on guitar that are really powerful. So it may not be the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, but they're saying really powerful, interesting things, and they're using the guitar as the instrument. Wow, so I have this dog named Iggy, who's about 5 or 6 years old, that theoretically would like to bite everyone. I think that's the soundtrack to his head. И пускай капает, капает с неба, иду в мокрых кроссах к тебе, где бы я не был. Really good. I assume they write, they're a vocal heavy, like lyric heavy group, a writer who really has like a thing they want to say, and they do a really good job having the music support it. The music's hooky. Every day I hear records and I look and I see, and it's by someone who did something, in Logic, or they did something in Ableton, or they did something in Fruity Loops, or they did, and they're just flip, put it together, push it out. It's amazing. So right now I think it's almost like jazz was at the beginning of jazz. Eventually you found your Ornette Colemans and your Miles Davis, and your people that really set the tone for what jazz was going to be. But originally in the 20s and 30s, mostly it was just people jamming away. Some night someone would hit it and it would be magic. And I think that's what's going on. It's just happening on computers now. I have a 16-year-old daughter. She likes Tyler, the Creator. And the minute too many people like Tyler, the Creator, she doesn't like Tyler, the Creator anymore. It used to be about collectivism. It used to be the power was going to Ed Sullivan, the whole world, and watching the Beatles play Love Me Do. And it was this great moment of like, everyone's together. Youth culture was one thing. You had parent culture, and then the differentiation was, we have our own youth culture. Now, youth culture is fragmented into all these little shared experiences online, which is happening because of digital distribution. And so we can't ever put that back in the bottle. It's never going to exist like that. People want to have something that's their own. They want their own unique ID colorway. They want to get their own Yeezy before anyone ever did. They want their own off-white t-shirt that was only limited edition to 500. Everybody wants their own. They want their own skateboard deck, that cost only to 10 of them. It's the way the world works.
Листая ленту, выбираю себе покруче. И дома, сука, Шанел. Дома, сука, как Гуччи.
So the super busy hi-hats, trap hi-hats, made me think I'd heard it before, but the chorus was really good because it lifted up and it really gave you a real big hook. So that's good. It's a good record. I met Timothée, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and somebody knew his manager, I think, and we met at an Italian restaurant, and he had the blingiest watch I'd ever seen in my life. It was crazy, And we had a wonderful time together. It was super fun. His girlfriend was with him and the manager, and we just kind of hung out, and it was about 4 hours, and we really talked about hip hop. We started working with musicians because that's what we knew. So we were basically marking the headphone like we would market an Eminem record or a Lady Gaga record or a Queens of the Stone Age record. It was like, how do you market? How do you create excitement? And what we quickly realized is that it started really with LeBron James. And we were making a documentary with LeBron James. We were doing the soundtrack. And he and his manager said to us, we're going to go to Beijing for the Olympics. If you give us 12 pairs of headphones, we'll give them to the team and hand them out. And we thought, all right, that's fine. We'll give, but we didn't even think anything of it. And then when they got to Beijing, the team so fell in love with that headphone that they happened to get off the plane because they just woken up, right, with the headphones on around their neck. LeBron had them on his head. And the next day, the world, everywhere in sport, ran pictures, right, of the basketball team wearing headphones. And all of a sudden we started thinking about, athletes really care about sound. What are athletes doing? Athletes are in the gym training, they're on the bus or planes traveling, they're trying to get zoned out, getting focused, they're trying to recover. Music is such an important part of driving sport. And so like everything we do, we went and we found those people that are evangelistic about music, whether it was Serena Williams or Anthony Joshua in boxing, or Neymar in football, Simone Biles in gymnastics, and every vertical, Michael Phelps in swimming and aquatics. They're all I think some of the greatest athletes of all time. They love music. They're inspired by music. When you talk to LeBron, music is part and parcel with his training. When he's thinking about his workout, he's thinking about what is he listening to, what's on that playlist. You talk to Serena, when she's trying to relax, and she's about to go from a semi to a final of a major Grand Slam, she's back in a hotel room watching a musical. She's listening to music. That's her recovery, is in music. You see it over and over again. So there's this vital connection between music and sport and performance, and so that's what we're trying to tie into. Vocal school. Sounds like it was made in Bristol, 1994. What Apple is remarkably good at is efficiently focusing on R&D, right, and investment on innovation. And so when they start looking at how do we innovate around sound, Beats has been a massive beneficiary of all that technology. So for example, if you look at the Powerbeats Pro, which is our new product we have coming out, the H1 chip in that product, that enables, our headphones have a 9-hour battery life outside the case. So you can use it as a fitness headphone for 9 hours without charging them. That's enabled by the tech that went into the piece of silicon that is in H1. So for us, we've been the beneficiaries of not only learning by having all the Beats teams work as part of the engineering effort of Apple, but also in looking at the massive global innovation roadmap and finding those things that can actually benefit the audio experience. So the most important thing is the product. We have the #1 selling sport headphone in the world, which has been the Powerbeats family. And we're just now launching the Powerbeats Pro, which is the next iteration, which is an untethered sport headphone with, I think, the greatest headphone tech in the world. But most importantly, I cannot be more ecstatic about the way that headphone sounds. And it sounds exactly like what I do is I listen to records that I was in the room when they were made. Okay, I remember we were arguing over the ring on the snare. We would put a piece of tape on the snare, we put the piece of tape off, we put the piece of tape on, we put a piece of jelly on the snare, we changed the stick, we changed the head, we uncoated the head, we coated the head. Oh, we turned the mic in the corner and we super compressed it and we put it through like an API EQ and then we put it through this, weird mic pre. That's the sound, right? And it's creating, because of the distance between the snare head, the way the drummer's playing, and the mic, let's say 20, 30 meters away, it's creating a reverb and a sense of motion. If I'm not hearing the room in the reverb in the headphone, something's getting in the way of the experience. So I'm always working backwards engineering to have our product sound exactly like it sounds in the studio. And with Powerbeats Pro, I've had more fun doing that than any product in the history of Beats. Because for it to be a fitness product which I ran last night around, in Moscow, I went for about, running for about 60 minutes, listening to Powerbeats Pro, and everything sounded beautiful to me. And so it was like, this is amazing. I'm in my recording studio, but there's the Kremlin. There, it's so much fun. traveling the world and spending time going to see art in Tokyo, in Seoul, in Mexico City, in Los Angeles, New York, London, Paris, Berlin, I think that what's going on in Moscow is as important, as contemporary, as avant-garde as anything in the world. And I think there's a sense of a necessity to push the boundary further, to keep pushing, you know, and I think Moscow is a place that seems very, very at home at doing that. And, you know, I'm also excited because you have that great festival. But events like that are really important, you know, because that's like now a festival that's on the global calendar of a place to go and be. And I've had 3 or 4 people say, oh, you got to come back to Moscow for the festival. So I think there's this wonderful thing of the beautiful traditions. Like I've been here in the winter and gone ice skating in Gorky Park on the river, and it's so gorgeous, you know, and you eat the pancakes, and you know, it's really fun. And at the same time, you do these super avant-garde contemporary things that are driving global culture. It's that balance that makes it a special place.